Hey everyone, and welcome back to another movie from our Hot News channel. We will talk about American celebrities who died today and in the last few days, as well as famous people from other countries in this movie. Please show your love and support by giving this movie a like before we go on. It means a lot to us. Thanks, let's get started. Rob Reiner has died at the age of 78. He was a famous actor and director who made some of Hollywood's most beloved movies. Their home in Brentwood, California, was found empty on December 14 with him and his wife Michelle not moving. The police are looking into what happened. Reiner first became famous when he played Mike Meathead Stivic on All in the Family in the 1970s. That show is still one of the most famous TV shows of all time. But what he did behind the camera was the most important thing. Reiner directed an amazing string of movies that helped define modern cinema after he stopped making TV shows. Watch movies like Misery, This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and A Few Good Men. His stories, comedy, romance, drama, and heart were all shown in different ways in each movie. Reiner was born in New York in 1947. His famous father, Carl Reiner, was a comedian. He went to UCLA to study film and built his business slowly before becoming a director and changing Hollywood forever. The National Film Registry now keeps many of his movies safe. Reiner was known for more than just movies. He had a strong political voice, loved working with others, and thought that being kind on the set made the art better. There is a lot that Rob Reiner has left behind. Not only of famous movies, but also of stories that people love, quote, and share with others. Rachel Carpani, an Australian actor, died at the age of 45. Thursday, December 15, her sister Georgia posted on Instagram a message from their parents confirming that Rachel had died peacefully after a long fight with a long-term illness. The family asked that the funeral be held in private, with only close family and friends present. As Jodie Fountain on the popular Australian show McLeod's Daughters, Rachel was best known. She played the part from 2001 to 2009 and became a fan favorite. The show became an important part of Australian culture and beyond because of her act. She also built a foreign career by appearing in movies and TV shows in the United States, such as NCIS, Los Angeles, The Glades, and Against the Wall. Having fun with Liam Hemsworth. Georgia wrote Rachel an emotional birthday message a few months ago. She called her the most beautiful woman I know and thanked her for bringing light and happiness into their lives. Fans sent Rachel a lot of love on social media after the news came out. They remembered her for her skill and the effect she had on people who grew up watching her. Rachel Carpani has left behind acts that people will never forget and a strong bond with fans all over the world. The news came to us that Andaluz Bogsa had died after a long illness. Because she was such a good singer, she sang with the opera companies in both Bucharest and Prague. Bogsa was praised for her powerful acting and expressive singing in roles like Rusalka, Salome, Janufa, Tosca, Lady Macbeth, and Donna Anna. Audiences and co-workers alike will remember her interpretations for a long time, making her a unique personality on the opera stage. Pauline Potter, who was on My 600 Lobbit during its third season. Life has died at the age of 62. Dylan Brooks, her son, posted the news on YouTube and said that her health was getting worse after a bad car crash earlier this year. They were in an accident in January on a dark highway when their car hit a stopped truck trailer that wasn't lit up. Pauline got hurt a lot, including breaking her lungs, and her health never fully got better. After that, her problems got worse over the next few months. By the summer, she was having trouble digesting food, and doctors later found that her stomach was blocked. She was taken to the hospital in August and never came home. Despite medical care, her health kept getting worse. On November 19, after a number of complications and time in rehab, Pauline was moved to hospice. He said that the doctors told her family that her body could not handle any more treatment. Pauline, who was known for being honest and determined on My 600 Obisai, died on Thanksgiving Day. Life, Pauline's story touched a lot of people who followed her. As of now, her son has started a fundraiser to help pay for the funeral and ashes. Her father, Abraham Isaac Quintanilla Jr., has died. He was 86 years old. His son, A.B., told everyone on December 13. Quintanilla, who wrote a touching Instagram post to say that his father had died. Later, the Quintanilla family put out a statement praising Abraham as a loving husband, father, and leader of their family. Abraham was best known as Selena Giselos Dinos' father and boss. Being a musician himself, he was very important in spotting Selena's ability early on and helping to shape her career in a way that made her a worldwide star. The band, which became an important part of Tejano music, also had his children, A.B. and Suzette. Abraham stayed deeply dedicated to preserving Selena's legacy after her tragic death at the age of 23 in 1995. He worked on projects that introduced her story and music to new generations. Recently, Selena's family worked together on films and TV shows that honored her life and legacy. In a message, they thanked fans for their support and prayers and asked for space to grieve. The world will always remember Abraham Quintanilla as Selena's father and as the person who helped spread her music. The famous Spanish-Argentine actor Hector Alterio has died at the age of 96. Pantación Espectáculos put out a message on Saturday morning from his family confirming the news. Alterio worked successfully right up until the end of his life, focusing on theater, movies, and TV. He was born in Argentina and later became famous in Spain. His work lasted for decades and took him to many places around the world. After getting death threats in 1975, Alterio had to leave the country and move to Spain. He rebuilt his life and work there, and audiences and other artists will always admire him for it. His work is now an important part of the culture history of Spain and Argentina. He was in a lot of well-known plays and kept performing well into his later years. Most recently, he went on tour with the play Una Pequeña Historia, which was greatly inspired by his own life. The artists Molina and Ernesto Alterio were born to Hector Alterio. Both of them are well known and respected in the art world. His death marks the end of an amazing era in acting. He left behind a legacy of strength, ability, and devotion to the art. Carl Carlton, a funk and R&B singer, has died at the age of 72. His son, Carlton Hudgens II, shared the news on December 14. He paid respect to his father on Facebook, calling him a legend and thanking him for being strong through a long and hard life. Carl Carlton began making music when he was very young. He was born Carlton Hudgens in Detroit in 1953. Before he made it big in the early 1970s, he did shows as Little Carl Carlton. In 1974, his cover of Everlasting Love was a big hit. It made it to the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and is still widely played today. Carlton is best known for the funk hit She's a Bad Mama Jama, which he made in 1981. This song was nominated for a Grammy and became an anthem for the time. Many artists have used parts of the song in their own work, and it has been in movies and TV shows like Friends, Fat Albert, and Miss Congeniality too. Reports say that Carlton had been having health problems since he had a stroke a few years ago. People from all over the music world quickly paid tribute to Carl Carlton's unique voice and lasting impact on soul, funk, and R&B. He leaves behind a strong musical legacy that continues to move dance floors and inspire new generations. Simon Philip Cowell came into the world in the London neighbourhood of Lambeth on October 7, 1959. His father, Eric Selig Philip Cowell, was an executive at EMI Music Publishing. He was born into a family that would unknowingly shape one of the most important people in entertainment. During that time, his mother Julie Brett was a dancer and celebrity. This mix of business ties and an appreciation for art made for a unique environment for young Simon, though it would not be easy for him to become successful. Simon was the second of 6 children to grow up in Elstree, Hertfordshire. He came from a family that was both privileged and strict. The fact that his dad worked in the music business meant that they often talked about singers, contracts, and the entertainment business at dinner. But Simon wasn't interested in following the usual ways to be successful. Even though he went to Radlett Preparatory School and then Dover College, he had a hard time with school from the start. During his youth, Simon was often defiant, which made his parents and teachers very angry. Early on, he showed that he didn't respect authority or rules that didn't make sense to him. And that would later describe how brutally honest he was on TV. Because of how bad his behavior got at Dover College, he dropped out before finishing. This wasn't just teenage rebellion, it was a basic problem with systems that put conformity ahead of results. Young Cowell had hints of the enterprising spirit that would later make him who he is. He knew what worth was and how to negotiate even when he was a child. He would later talk about times when he tried out different small businesses to see how well he could sell his ideas and goods to his friends. These businesses didn't do well, but they showed that the person was always thinking about angles and chances. His bond with his dad was complicated and important to him. In Eric Cowell, there was both motivation and fear. The elder Cowell had made a good living as a music publisher. How to work in a field that is known for being very competitive. Simon learned about the music business from watching his father work professionally and know a lot about the business. But there was also stress. It was expected of Simon that he would have to show himself in a world where his father's name opened doors but didn't promise anything. Julie, Simon's mother, had a different effect on him. Because she had been dancing, she knew how to put on a good show. But what was more important was that she had a sharp wit and social intelligence that Simon had acquired. She knew how to handle social situations with ease and a good sense of what would work best for each person. The business sense of his father and the people skills of his mother would become Simon's secret tools. There were some problems in the Cowell home. With 6 kids, there was bound to be competition for resources and care. Simon quickly learned that to stand out, he had to be unique, even if that meant being controversial. He got used to being criticized and learned how to give it back in equal measure. These are skills that would help him in the rough entertainment business. Even though Simon grew up in a wealthy family, he was uncertain about his future as a teenager. While he was having trouble figuring out what he wanted to do, he saw his father do well in the music business. Because he didn't have the usual qualifications, he couldn't really go down the normal job paths. This could have been very bad, but it made Simon depend on his natural skills, like his charm, ability to persuade, and almost instinctual sense of what people wanted. The first jobs he had were very humbling. Simon did a bunch of weird jobs that had nothing to do with fun after he graduated from high school. He did hard physical work on building sites and in other jobs that were very different from the glamorous worlds of music and TV. He learned the value of hard work at these jobs, and they also made him more determined to be successful in the entertainment business, where he thought he belonged. Simon Cowell got his start in the entertainment business by working in the mailroom at EMI Music Publishing, where his father was an executive. It was 1979, and Cowell was 20 years old. He didn't have any qualifications and had a bad image from school. For someone who thought he was headed for bigger things, starting out in the mailroom was embarrassing, but it gave him a look at how the business worked. He watched how business was done, how musical ability was judged, and how the business side of music worked behind the scenes. His rise in the music business was slow, and it was marked by both big wins and big losses. Simon worked hard and finally became a talent scout. He then moved up to more responsible jobs. He learned to listen for commercial possibilities, which means he could figure out what would sell instead of what was necessarily deeply artistic. This practical method put him at odds with purists of music sometimes, but it worked for business. He worked with different artists and learned the hard way that ability wasn't enough. Timing, packaging, and knowing the market were all very important. At the beginning of the 1980s, Simon went out on his own and started IAN's Music with a friend. The label had some early success, but in the end it failed. Simon was almost broke and had to move back in with his parents when he was in his early 20s. This loss could have ended his career before it even started, but instead it taught him a lot about managing money, figuring out how much risk is acceptable, and how important it is to have long-term business plans. It taught him what not to do, which he used in every choice he made afterward. To start over with his work, Simon joined Fanfare Records, which is where he came up with his unique way of marketing and developing artists. He worked with both joke acts and commercial pop artists because he knew the music business could handle both serious art and pure fun. His success with some artists showed that he could find holes in the market and fill them quickly. Fanfare Records did go out of business in 1989, though, giving Simon's goals and funds yet another crushing blow. Even though these mistakes in the music business were heartbreaking at the time, they helped Simon become the strong businessman he would become. He learned to take a step back from projects and see entertainment as a business first, then an art form. It would be shown on TV that this cold practicality was seen as cruel. But it was from the point of view of someone who had lost everything and knew how dangerous the show business could be. Simon made a big break when he became an A&R expert for BMG. He finally found a stable place to live here and started laying the groundwork for his future kingdom. He signed singers and helped them grow into successful acts that sold a lot of records, including novelty records and music compilations promoted on TV. His knowledge of how TV could help sell music was growing, and he could see how TV publicity and record sales could work together. This new information would completely change his job path. Watching talent shows in other countries gave Simon the idea that would change his career forever. It occurred to him that talent shows on TV could be huge advertising sites for selling music, basically changing the process of making artists into entertainment. When Simon got the chance to be a judge on a new British talent show, he jumped at it, even though no one could have imagined how popular it would become. When Pop Idol first aired in the UK in 2001, Simon Cowell became famous quickly, but not for being good at business. People hated him and couldn't stop watching because he was brutally honest with contestants, ready to tell people they weren't talented, and didn't care about being average. People had never seen a judge who wouldn't soften harsh criticism or give fake hope. While the other judges gave helpful comments while also being encouraging, Simon was very good at giving harsh judgments. It wasn't cruel just because it was cruel. It was his honest opinion, given without the social niceties that most people use to hide unpleasant facts. The success of Pop Idol in the UK caught the attention of people in the US, and Simon played a big role in making American Idol. American Idol became a culture phenomenon when it first aired in 2002 and ruled American TV for years. Simon became known all over the world for being the mean judge. He sat next to Paula Abdul and Randy Jackson, which made it so that Paula could give support. Randy gave his opinion on the business, and Simon slapped people in the face with reality. The formula worked really well, and American Idol became one of the most watched TV shows in US history. American Idol had an effect that went far beyond its popularity as a show. Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, Jennifer Hudson, and many other artists who went on to become big stars got their start with it. Advertising, music sales, performance tours, and merchandise from the show brought in hundreds of millions of dollars. Simon made money from multiple sources because the winners' albums were released by his record company, which is an example of vertical integration. He had pretty much built a factory for making pop stars with fans already there. Because of how well American Idol did, Simon Cowell is now one of the most important people in show business. He became richer than he ever thought possible. He is said to make more than $30 million a season in pay plus his share of the money made from music sales and other activities. Even more important, he showed that his model worked. They could make stars on TV, and people would watch the process if it was shown as fun. This confirmation made him feel like he could grow his business even more. Simon made the British TV show The X Factor in 2004. This show improved the structure of talent shows by adding groups and age groups, as well as by giving judges more control over how contestants improve. Over the years, Simon himself worked with many types of artists, directly influencing the artists who came out of the show. There was a huge hit in the UK with The X Factor, and it was later remade for American TV in many other countries. The series structure, which included judges' homes and more complex production, made talent shows more exciting and fun to watch. Some of the biggest acts of the 2000s and 2010s got their start on The X Factor. One Direction, which was made up of different contestants on the show, became famous all over the world even though they came in third place in their season. Leona Lewis was famous all over the world for her powerful singing. Little Mix was one of the most popular girl groups of their time. The show's ability to find popular acts proved Simon's method and showed that his formula for making hits could be used in different markets and cultures. Simon made his next big thing, Britain's Got Talent, in 2006. That same year, he also made America's Got Talent. This format grew to include all kinds of performance ability, not just singing. From funny to weird, from magic to dance to weird novelty acts. The show's open structure and focus on telling emotional stories about the contestants made it interesting to watch for a wider range of people than music-focused shows. Britain's Got Talent found Susan Boyle. Her tryout video became one of the most watched videos in the history of the internet and made her a worldwide star, even though she was middle-aged and had never worked as a performer before. America's Got Talent was the most popular show on TV this summer, and Simon finally joined as a judge in 2016, taking over for Howard Stern. His appearance brought new viewers to the show, and the way he got along with the other judges made for memorable TV moments. The format of the show made it more unpredictable and varied than straight singing events, which kept viewers interested over multiple seasons. The platform helped a wide range of acts, from ventriloquists to danger acts to singers. Simon's production company, Psycho Entertainment, grew to be a major player in the TV business. The company made different copies of Got Talent and The X Factor all over the world. This made them a global entertainment empire that made money in dozens of countries at the same time. Simon's business plan of making formats that could be leased all over the world worked out very well. He wasn't just making shows for one group of people, he was making models that could be used in any culture while keeping the main things that made the shows popular. It's hard to believe how much money these shows made. At the height of his TV company, Simon's many businesses were bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars every year. He became one of the richest people in show business, with an estimated $600 million in personal income. He had more than just money, his shows had a big impact on culture. They changed popular music, started careers, and dominated talk while they were on. But keeping this empire going needed constant change. Ratings started to go down as people got tired of talent shows. In the end, the X Factor USA was cancelled, and American Idol finished its original run in 2016 before coming back on a different network. Simon had to come up with new ways to do things that people were already used to. With streaming services and new watching habits, TV was changing, so he had to change the strategies that had worked for him in the past. Simon Cowell had a difficult relationship with his health for most of his adult life. He ignored it for decades before big wake-up calls made him make big changes to his lifestyle. He was the typical workaholic entertainment executive for years, putting business success ahead of his health and thinking he was unbeatable even though there was more and more evidence to the contrary. The fast-paced, high-stress entertainment business shaped how he felt about his health. Showing weakness was seen as career suicide, and he didn't have time for self-care. As Simon became more famous, he kept up hard work hours that would wear out people half his age. He often worked 18-hour days, constantly moved between Los Angeles and London, and got by with very little sleep. People knew that he didn't eat well because he mostly ate prepared foods, too much red meat, and sweets. Many people knew him for his love of unhealthy foods like hamburgers, sausage rolls, and chocolate cake. Along with smoking a lot and sleeping at odd times, Simon was slowly ruining his health while building his entertainment business. The habit of smoking was especially bad. Simon had been a heavy smoker for decades, even though he knew it was bad for his health. He smoked during the workday. He deeply engaged in the habit, which was connected to handling stress and coming up with new ideas. People he worked with and friends had seen him smoke during meetings, set breaks, and almost any free time. The addiction was strong, and even though he tried to quit a few times, he always went back to smoking when he was stressed. In 2017, Simon passed out and fell down the stairs at his London home in the middle of the night. This was the first big health scare he had. He was taken to the hospital right away because the fall was so bad, where doctors did many tests to find out what caused it. At first, the event wasn't given much attention by the public, but it was a sign that his bad habits were catching up with him. Doctors told him that his blood pressure was too low, which was probably because he was tired, not eating well, and not taking care of his general health. The event in 2017 should have been a turning point, but Simon had a range of reactions to it. He tried to change some things about his life, like eating better and taking on less work, but these changes were only half-hearted and didn't last. He was still sure that he could deal with his health problems by making small changes to his living instead of making big changes. People who are very successful and think their success rests on keeping up their current pace and habits often deny this. People close to Simon were also worried about how much he drank. He wasn't an alcoholic, but he did drink a lot as part of his social and work life. People drank at business events, dinners with leaders, and just to unwind in the evening. Along with his other health problems, drinking alcohol was making him feel more stressed. Friends noticed that he looked more and more worn out and tired. His face showed the signs of years of not being cared for. It all changed when he had an accident in 2020 that could have stopped his career or even killed him. To try a new electric bike in August of that year, Simon did so at his home in Malibu. Simon did not read the instructions carefully enough before taking the bike for a test ride in the courtyard. The bike was strong and foreign to him. He sped up too much, and the bike's power was too much for him. He went off track and fell backward. He landed on his back on the concrete courtyard floor. The effect was terrible. Simon had injuries in his back that needed surgery right away because they were so bad. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors put a metal rod in his back to support it during a 6-hour surgery. Because of how bad his injuries were, doctors told him he was very close to being disabled. What if he had fallen a little differently? The damage to his spinal cord could have left him in a wheelchair for life, or even worse. For someone who was used to being busy and in charge all the time, the healing process was painful and humbling. Simon couldn't move properly for weeks and was in so much pain he couldn't even imagine it. Simple things like standing, walking, and sitting turned into big problems that needed help. The man who had built a kingdom by working hard all the time couldn't do anything now, relying on others for basic needs and not knowing when they will be able to heal. It became Simon's full-time job to do physical treatment. He worked with experts who made rehabilitation plans for him to get his back stronger and more mobile again. The process was slow and frustrating, with setbacks and hard training that put his mental strength to the test. For someone like Simon, who was impatient and needed to be in charge, the slow process of healing was hard on his mental health. He had to learn to be patient and accept his limits, which were not easy for him. The accident made Simon face the fact that he was going to die and make some changes to his goals. He noticed that his health had been a ticking time bomb while he was in the hospital with a broken back and couldn't work or keep up with his normal pace. It wasn't just bad luck that they fell. His body finally gave out after being abused for years, so it was inevitable. Fundamental changes had to be made for him to be able to see his young son grow up and keep working in the field he loved. What happened next was a huge and dramatic change in how people lived. Simon changed everything about his diet and stopped eating meat, dairy, and artificial foods. He switched to a plant-based vegan diet with the help of experts who made meal plans that were best for his health. This wasn't a short-term plan. Because it was a lasting change in his life, he had to relearn how to deal with food. The man used to eat only hamburgers and sausage rolls, but now he eats smoothies, salads, and carefully made veggie meals. To finally end a decades-long addiction that had hurt his lungs and heart, he stopped smoking for good. The drive to do something was strong enough this time to beat the cravings and psychological dependence. Knowing that smoking could hurt his recovery and health in the future gave him the willpower to quit that he had not had in previous tries. Friends said Simon was truly determined to not smoke because he knew it was important for his life. Simon also changed the way he worked out and kept himself fit. Exercise had been random and not very intense before the accident. Now, he worked with trainers who made workout plans that were good for people who were recovering from major spinal injuries. As a part of his daily workouts, he started to work on his core strength, flexibility, and heart health. The practice wasn't about how things looked. It was about making his body strong enough to support his back and keep him from getting hurt again. The change in appearance was amazing. Simon lost a lot of weight in just a few months after starting his new lifestyle. He looked years younger than he did before the accident, and his face looked healthy and more alive. His friends and coworkers noticed how drastically his looks and energy levels had changed. In interviews, he talked about his health journey freely and said that the accident had saved his life by making him change before something worse happened. The back damage, on the other hand, had long-lasting effects. Simon was in pain and couldn't do certain things, which were regular reminders of the accident. He still had trouble with or couldn't do some movements, and he had to be careful when doing physical tasks that could put stress on his spine. He couldn't do many of the things he used to enjoy, and even easy things like roughhousing with his son had to be carefully planned so he wouldn't hurt himself again. The accident also had a big effect on my mental health. Simon became more aware of his own mortality and fragility, which was something he had tried to hide before. This knowledge affected how he set goals and balanced his work and personal life. He became pickier about the projects he worked on, more willing to give other people tasks to do, and more interested in spending time with his family than in chasing every business chance. Simon's journey with his health also changed how people saw him and how he interacted with them. Being open about his problems and saying that he was weak and made mistakes made him more likable in a way that years of being a mean judge never had. Fans liked how honest he was about the accident and his recovery, and his change motivated people who were having similar health problems. The story went from showing Simon as an unbeatable entertainment mogul to showing Simon as a person who had learned the hard way how to take care of himself. The COVID-19 outbreak, which happened while he was still recovering, made his health problems even worse. Being weak and vulnerable with a weak immune system during a global health disaster made people worry and take extra precautions. Due to his recent medical problems, Simon carefully stayed away from other people because he was afraid of the virus. The pandemic stopped the making of entertainment, but it also gave people time to heal and think. Even though things were getting better, Simon knew that the health shift would take a lot of work and attention. It was still tempting to go back to old habits, especially when things were stressful or when I was moving. Sticking to a vegan diet took planning and dedication, especially when working in places where bad food was easy to get. To keep up the changes in his life over time, he had to form new habits and find new ways to get help. The worst thing that ever happened to Simon Cowell was that his father Eric died in 1999. He was 81 years old. Eric Cowell was more than just a dad. He helped Simon get started in the music business, was an example of how to do well as a worker, and was often used to measure Simon's own success. Their partnership was complicated, with professional respect and personal tension, admiration, and the need for him to prove himself on his own. Eric helped Simon get his start in the EMI mailroom, but he also had high standards that Simon worked hard to meet for years. Eric's death happened at a very important point in Simon's work. At age 40, Simon had been through both huge failures and growing success in the music business. He was well known for his work on TV, but not yet to the point where everyone knew his name. Pop Idol wasn't coming out for another 2 years. Somehow, Eric never got to see his son become the famous person he would become all over the world. Even though he had seen Simon's toughness and business sense grow over many years of working in the same field. Simon's sadness over the death of his father was deep, and it was made worse by feelings he still had about their relationship. He had spent a lot of his work trying to earn his father's respect by doing well in the same field where Eric had already made a name for himself. That confirmation would never come, at least not straight away. People close to Simon said that the death of his father had a big impact on him and changed his drive in the years that followed. Simon rarely talked about it in public because he wanted to keep his feelings private. After Eric died, Simon's mother Julie became even more important to him. She knew him well, stood by him, and was one of the few people who could be honest with him without worrying about his short temper. Julie was always happy for Simon when he did well. But she also kept him grounded by telling him of how poor he came from and how family is more important than fame. They had a loving relationship, and Simon often went to see her and asked for her help on personal and professional issues. Julie lived long enough to see Simon become one of the most famous TV hosts in the world, which was a huge accomplishment. She went to events with him, met famous people through his contacts, and liked the easy life that his success gave her. But she stayed the same person at her core. She wasn't interested in fame and cared more about Simon's happiness and character than his achievements. Simon needed this steadiness because he worked in a field that was known for being shallow and betraying people. Simon lost another important person in his life when his mother Julie died at the age of 89 in July 2015. Before Simon could get to her, she had already died because she had died while he was working. He felt terrible about not being there with her when she was dying. Simon was very close to his mother and talked to her almost every day. When she died, there was a hole in his life that nothing could fill. He later said that her death was one of the worst events in his life and that it had changed him in a deep way. The grief he felt when Julie died was different from the sadness he felt when his father died. There were a lot of complicated business and personal issues to work through with Eric. For Julie, it was the loss of love and support that didn't depend on anything. She was his biggest fan and loved him no matter what, seeing him as her son instead of the Simon Cowell brand. When you lose that kind of love, you feel a sadness that money and fame can't fill. When Simon's mother died, he had to stop work plans. Something very out of the ordinary for someone who was known for working hard all the time. He needed some alone time to think about the death and deal with his grief. Friends said that Simon was really sad, showing a side of himself that he usually kept hidden behind his tough exterior. He had to deal with feelings he usually pushed down or put into work because of the loss. Simon also thought about his goals and his relationship with his own son after Julie died. Having lost both parents, he became very aware of how short life is and how important it is to be present in his child's life. He was even more determined not to let the same thing happen with his own family after the pain of not being with his mother when she died. He later decided to slow down at work and focus more on his personal life because of this loss. Besides losing his parents, Simon also lost other important people in his life who hurt him badly. Cheryl Cole, a close friend and fellow judge on The X Factor, had personal problems that got in the way of their work relationship. Even though they weren't dead, the way important ties in the entertainment business changed brought their own kind of grief. A lot of the time, working in business means making tough decisions that hurt personal relationships. Throughout his career, Simon made a lot of these kinds of decisions. When Paula Abdul left American Idol and their friendship got tense afterward, it was a very painful professional loss. Paula had been Simon's on-screen rival for years, and the two of them getting along so well made the show so popular. Under the surface of the TV relationship, they were really just friends, which made the work split and the time they spent apart very hard on an emotional level. Simon later said he felt bad about how their work relationship ended, and the bond that got hurt because of it. Simon was also greatly affected by the suicide of a contestant on one of his shows, though he rarely talked about it in public. The pressure of the entertainment business, along with sudden fame or public rejection, has caused tragic outcomes for some people who competed in talent shows. Simon thought about his responsibilities and wondered if the shows took advantage of weak people for fun. Because of these losses, people had to have tough talks about the morality of reality TV and the duty of care that is given to participants. Simon also lost professional relationships because of trust issues and disagreements at work. People he trusted in business had taken from him, put down his reputation, or left when it mattered the most. Even though these were not deaths, the betrayals caused sadness. He lost trust and realized that the ties he valued were just business deals. He learned hard lessons about loyalty and how short-lived many work friendships are in the entertainment business. After dating Terry Seymour for 6 years, their relationship ended in a way that hurt him emotionally, but they stayed friends afterward. Simon wasn't ready to get married and have kids at that point in his life, but Terry did. The end of the relationship was necessary. But it still meant the end of a relationship that was important to him. After many years, Simon admitted that his unwillingness to commit at that time was selfish and that he had hurt someone who deserved better. The deaths of his beloved dogs also caused him real sadness. He has always loved his dogs very much, especially Squidly and Diddley, his Yorkshire Terriers. When Squidly died, Simon was heartbroken. He broke plans and publicly grieved the loss. He often had trouble showing how he felt about relationships with other people, but his love for his dogs was simple and pure. When they died, he lost love and friendship that didn't require anything from him except being there. The health problems of Simon's brother Michael also caused stress and fear of loss in the family. Even though the specifics were kept secret, Simon's worry about his siblings' health added to his sadness and fear of losing more family members. Having already lost both parents, the thought of losing brothers made him feel worse because it meant that the family unit he grew up in would eventually fall apart. Simon felt the loss of youth and time in a bigger way as he got older. Friends and co-workers from earlier in his job died or retired, which showed him how time had passed and that he would soon die. He lost people he worked with or looked up to in the industry. Each death was a warning that life was short and that he was changing from the active young executive he used to be to someone older. Over the past few years, these losses have made Simon Cowell more thoughtful and maybe even softer. People knew this man for being tough and emotionally distant, but he had been through enough grief to better understand how vulnerable and painful people are. While he kept up his direct communication style at work, people close to him noticed that he was more emotionally open and ready to talk about feelings he had been holding back. Simon's thoughts on his own memory and what he wanted to leave behind were also changed by the deaths. Being a good father and family member made him more focused on being remembered for more than just his business success. He had been through the pain of losing his parents. It became more clear how short-lived fame and business success are when compared to losing loved ones forever. Block 5. Present-day activities in life. Simon Cowell is in a very different stage of life now than he was when he was a workaholic who ruled entertainment TV for almost 20 years. He has changed his goals on purpose now that he is 65 years old. Putting his family and health ahead of building a business, which used to be his only goal. It took a lot of health crises, personal losses, and the viewpoint that comes from living through almost fatal accidents to bring about this change. People who know Simon Cowell today will recognize that person because of their core personality and work instincts. However, the way they spend their time and energy has fundamentally changed. In ways that would not have seemed possible when he was single, his bond with his partner Lauren Silverman and their son Eric has become the most important thing in his life. Eric, born in February 2014 and named after Simon's late father, represents something Simon never thought he would feel: real fatherly love and the desire to be there for the growth of another person. Simon has been very open about how much becoming a father changed him, giving him a reason to do things other than just getting ahead at work and making him think about heritage and personal matters as well as business issues. Some people who knew Simon when he was a worker are surprised by how hands-on he is as a dad. He makes time for Eric's events and school runs, and he puts being home for dinner and bedtime first. This isn't just parenting on the weekends. Family and friends confirm that Simon has really changed his life to focus on his son. He sometimes takes Eric to the studio to slowly introduce him to the showbiz world while also making sure he has a normal childhood despite being famous and wealthy. The family spends some time in London and some time in Malibu. They have homes in both places that show how Simon is still connected to the British and American entertainment businesses. The Malibu home where Simon's bicycle accident happened has been completely remodeled and is now the main home of the family. However, California has become the family's main home, while London is still important for business and keeping in touch with British TV. Lauren Silverman has been a calming force in Simon's life, helping him make the change from being a movie mogul to a family man. It was a big deal when they started dating while Lauren was still married, but now they're a real couple. Lauren handles a lot of the housework, so Simon can focus on a few important work projects while Lauren makes sure the family stays on schedule. Simon's professional workload has been cut down a lot, but he is still participating in entertainment through carefully chosen projects. He is still in charge of producing America's Got Talent, which is still one of the most watched game shows in the United States and a summer TV staple. His job has changed from being an active judge who made decisions every day to more of a strategic oversight role. He still shows on camera and takes part in important moments, though. Simon also runs Britain's Got Talent through his production company. This keeps him involved in British TV while giving him a break from the daily tasks that used to consume him. Simon has also put a lot of effort into coming up with new TV formats and ideas, though he is being more selective than he was when he was building his business. He knows that there are too many talent competition forms on the market and that people want new ideas. His production company looks for the next big idea that will grab people's attention in entertainment forms other than singing competitions. He starts new projects, though, with less of a sense of hurry and more of a focus on long-term viability and personal cost. Taking care of Simon's health is still a daily concern and ongoing project. He is still following the vegan diet he started after hurting his back. He works with doctors to make sure he is getting enough nutrients while staying on a plant-based diet. The diet needs planning and self-control, especially when he's moving or working on a set where the food doesn't always meet his needs. He continues to work out regularly, and his teachers plan workouts that strengthen his back and core while avoiding moves that could hurt him again. The long-term effects of the back accident are still a part of his daily life. Simon deals with his constant pain and limitations by going to physical therapy, careful movement and medical help when problems happen from time to time. He is very careful to keep his spine from getting worse, so he can't do many physical things he would normally enjoy. He has to think and be careful when doing simple things that most people take for granted. This is a constant reflection of how close he came to becoming permanently disabled or worse. His way of judging and criticizing ability has also changed in a big way. Simon is still straightforward and honest, but he doesn't give the harsh judgments that made him famous and feared. It's not clear whether this is a sign of real personal growth, an understanding that harsh criticism doesn't fit in with today's culture, or just a lack of energy for conflict. Because of this, Simon Cowell now gives honest comments instead of the cruel performances that were typical of his earlier TV shows. Simon's projected net worth is more than $500 million, which means he is still very wealthy. He built an empire of talent shows that still makes money through foreign versions and regular airings. He can choose which projects to work on and put his quality of life ahead of making the most of every business chance because he is financially secure. He is also more generous, though he doesn't talk about a lot of the good things he does for others. Giving money to charities that help kids, animals, and medical studies. His relationship with heritage is more complicated and deep now. Simon knows that the main things people will remember about him are making talent shows popular on TV and being a mean judge. But he wants to be known as someone who changed, who learned from his mistakes, and who put his family before fame in the end. Simon now does things every day that he would never have thought of doing when he was a workaholic. Breakfast with his family in the morning, reading to his son, walks on the beach with his dogs, and early nights at home instead of going to business dinners and events all the time. He denied himself these simple pleasures for decades while he worked hard to be successful. One thing that is clear is that Simon Cowell is someone who has dealt with death, changed his mind about what was important and picked a different path than the one that made him famous. He is still clearly Simon, he is still direct and thinks about fun in a strategic way. But he is also a dad trying to figure out how to teach his kid morals and normal things while dealing with very strange situations. A man who deals with long-term pain and other health problems, and someone who knows that time is limited and should be spent on important things.